and welcome to this week's Used Car Heaven. Coming up on the programme this week, we're looking to find a new car for Clyde, this week's viewer. He's looking for something seriously big that can carry up to 5 adults. So we've got MPVs and an Estates for him to choose from and to drive. Also in the programme, the car doctor is back in the surgery and Brad has more insider tips on the trading post. But let's find out more about Clyde. Clyde Baker is a community mental health nurse based in Essex. He needs something large, an estate or an MPV to carry up to 5 adults about in and lots of furniture at times too. Now he's willing to spend up to around £12,000 on a new car, or perhaps a little bit more for that perfect car. Hi Clyde, nice to meet you.
How are you doing?
So you're looking for something fairly big,
Yes.
fairly substantial,
That's right.
an automatic. I mean, you do a fair amount of miles every year then.
That's right, about 20,000.
20,000. So what else would you look for? An automatic or a manual? Or?
I spend a lot of time in the vehicle. I'm not prepared to compromise on comfort, so I want all the toys. I like, must have cruise control, otherwise I lose my licence.
Yeah.
Air conditioning, electric windows. The more comfort I've got, the better I am at the end of the day. And
An automatic as well, probably.
oh yes,
Definitely.
Yeah. Manuals are right for weekends, but for work I'm around town all day. I need
Well, I think we've lined
I
up
need an
3 really good
automatic.
cars, absolutely. First of these is a very classy one. It's a Mercedes E230 Estate. It's a little bit older maybe than you might have thought. I mean, you're looking to spend what, £10,000–12,000
Round about that, I
sort of
imagine.
thing. Well, this is maybe a little bit more than you were looking for, but you've got that 3-pointed badge on the front. It's a
Absolutely.
classy car, isn't it?
It certainly is.
Do you like the looks of it, first of all?
Yeah, I do like the look of this car, and you say it's got the class, and it's got all the spec that I'm looking for.
It has.
Except I might be a little bit concerned about fuel consumption, but then again, it's only a 4-cylinder engine,
It's
so
not
maybe
too
it will
bad. Yeah,
not too
absolutely.
bad. Possibly.
And you've got the seats in the back as well.
Should you need
you've got
them.
the extra load carrying capacity. If you don't want that, you fold the seats up and
That's
stick 2
right.
kids in the back or whatever.
Yeah, or a chest of drawers.
Yeah. Come and have a look at the second car. And the second car is this. It's the Chrysler Voyager. Launched a few years ago, a big seller in America, these things, incredibly popular. And I mean, it's an MPV, it's big. Is this the sort of thing you might consider?
I'd certainly consider it. It is possibly slightly on the large side for what I'm looking for, but certainly not. I wouldn't chuck it out of the wagon. You know, it's certainly worth looking at. Yeah,
It's fully
And
loaded with all the toys on it.
I've always wanted to have a go at one of these anyway.
Yeah. Well, this is, I mean, the only thing that might put you off this is that this is the petrol version.
Right.
So it's a little bit on the thirsty side. But it's pretty good to drive. It's an automatic. It's got aircon, it's got cruise control on it.
It's worth considering.
Worth considering. And of course, you've got the options of all those seats in the back.
Yes.
It's big.
And the room.
And the room. Have a look at the third car. And it's this, Clyde, it's the Renault Espace. I mean, the first MPV really to be launched in this country many, many years ago. This is one of the second generation cars. Do you like the look of it, first of all?
Oh yes, I remember when they first came in, I sort of saw them and thought, oh yes, I want one of them. I'd actually driven the first generation, but I haven't driven this model yet.
I mean, really radical for the time, wasn't it, when they first
Absolutely.
introduced it?
And so practical.
Yes, it is. I mean, it's a similar sort of size to the Voyager. Maybe not quite as bulky. It doesn't look it, though, does it?
No, it doesn't, and it's got the smaller engine, so it possibly have the fuel economy closer to that one I'm looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. It's got all the toys on it too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think the most important thing is to have a drive in it. So
Thanks very much.
Let's go out.
Cheers.
So, Clyde, at the moment you've got a Galaxy, so you're used to an MPV, a people carrier,
Yeah.
and you're used to that sort of high-up driving position. Well, you like that, obviously.
Though it's a smaller vehicle than the Galaxy, it's got very much the same commanding ride height.
It's very comfortable as well, isn't it?
Very, yes. In fact, I think comfort-wise, it's probably got the edge on the Galaxy. These seats are very nice.
Yeah. It's nice and light and airy.
Yes, absolutely. Again, that's another edge it's got on the Galaxy. The Galaxy has very little storage space inside. It's all space and no cupboards.
Now, this one, Clyde, is a 2 litre.
Right.
It's the standard Espace. It's got about 115 brake horsepower. But of course, it's a petrol engine. You'll get better economy if you went for a diesel version of this. But this is actually pretty good. It will average somewhere about 25, 26 to the gallon, which isn't too bad.
That's not too bad at all, and that's more or less what I'm looking for.
Renault are always claiming that the MPV was their idea. But if you talk to Chrysler, they claim it was theirs. Either way, Renault probably did come up with the concept of having everything, the engine, the passengers and their luggage all in one box. And that's the MPV in that style that we know today. So you'd expect Renault to be pretty good at making the things, and actually they are. This, the third generation Espace, can still keep up with the best of them today. It's the last of the Espaces to be made out of plastic panels fitted onto a galvanised steel frame. It'll be replaced very soon with a more traditionally built one. And that means don't pay top dollar. Watch your prices if you're buying one of these, because their values will drop when the new one comes out. And it suffers as well from the usual MPV problem, which is, if you're going to use all 7 seats, let's hope your passengers have only got small amounts of luggage. The only way around that is to buy the bigger, the grander Espace, which is a lot bigger on the road and a lot more expensive. Inside, Renault decided to go for very much a home-from-home feel, which explains why everything is carpeted or covered in cloth, including the dashboard. And in fact, with the dash, they've split everything up and spread it out so that it doesn't look like a dash at all, to give you that home-from-home feeling. But the result can be a bit confusing and a bit difficult to read until you've got used to it. Good news is there's loads of storage space and cubby holes all over the place to store all your gubbins and keep the place tidy, and you even get individual controls for your air conditioning. Now, I haven't got that at home.
It's been made since '91 and still is today, so there's loads of used examples on the market. Its 2-litre 4-cylinder engine will produce 115 brake horsepower. When it comes time to pay for your annual insurance, not too bad at Group 11.
So there we go, that's the Renault Espace then, Clyde. Once you get used to that column-mounted gear shift thing, you keep... Do you like it though, this car?
Yes. I mean, that wouldn't take 5 minutes to get used to. It's a very pleasant all-round drive, and it's got everything we want.
Performance-wise?
Yes, it's all there.
Doesn't it?
Yes, it certainly will vroom if you ask it nicely.
10 grand for this?
Not a problem.
Good value.
Yeah, very good value indeed.
All right, Clyde, you get to drive the other two cars very soon here on Used Car Heaven. But before that, let's see what the car doctor's been up to in the surgery. It's a Citroën Xantia water pump, you know. Here's Simon Hughes.
Today we're talking about water pump problems, and not just any ordinary water pump problem. Now, for starters, I'm showing you on a Citroën Xantia, but this engine is actually fitted in Peugeots and also some Rovers. But we're not just confined to this make of engine. We've also got the same problem that I'm going to describe on Vauxhalls and Fords and all sorts of different models. The problem is that modern manufacturers have designed their engines so that the water pump and various other things are really compact and tucked away. So much so the water pump on this car is absolutely buried. And to do that, it's not driven by the traditional fan belts, which we can see here. It's actually driven by the engine timing belt, which would normally only drive the camshaft and the crankshaft. So this is our scenario problem. If your water pump springs a leak and you don't repair it straight away, the bearings could collapse and throw off the timing belt, and that will in turn absolutely wreck your engine. So my tip is this, is that if your engine does spring a leak, don't wait until you can hear an audible noise and think, oh well, I better get it changed. You need to get it changed straight away, and maybe even not drive the engine, because if the timing belt does go, regardless of when you last had it changed, it will wreck your engine and you're going to be into a much bigger bill than just a simple water pump.
Thanks very much, Simon. There'll be more from the car doctor next week here on Used Car Heaven. But on this week's programme, we're trying to find the right car for Clyde. You're looking for an MPV in a state, something big. You liked the Espace, didn't you?
I did indeed, yes. Very pleasant car to drive, and as I say, all-round comfort and refinement, and it's got the oomph.
It has. And the second car is this, the Chrysler Voyager. Now, this has got even more oomph. It's got a 3.3 V6 engine, but the downside to that is that it's thirsty.
Yes.
But see how it drives is the main thing about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to driving this.
Jump in, let's go. Now, Clyde, if you thought the Espace was big, this is even bigger. It's the Chrysler Grand Voyager.
And isn't it just?
Isn't it huge?
Yeah, it's very comfortable to drive, but the driving position, when you've got the armrest down, it's actually surprisingly small.
You find it a bit cramped.
Yeah.
You get all the refinement, all the comfort, but at the expense of fuel economy. I mean, you're looking at early 20s on average around town, whereas the computer there tells us 15 miles to the gallon.
Absolutely.
Is that a bit too thirsty for you?
Yeah, as a weekend runabout, if you could afford to leave one of these sitting in the garage all week, go for it.
Now consider this, when this was new, this would cost £27,000 a few years ago. Now it's 10 grand.
Worth every penny.
50,000 miles on the clock.
And this will almost certainly do 200,000.
So just running it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's Richard Hammond with a complete lowdown on the Chrysler Voyager.
When Chrysler make their claims that the MPV was their idea, they're usually talking about their old day vans. And this, the Voyager, their MPV, kind of continues some of the themes from the day van, only in so much as it looks, well, vaguely menacing, or at least as if it's trying to look menacing. And also that it offers pretty high levels of luxurious accommodation. These sliding doors are pretty handy too, especially if you're parked in anywhere small. This, though, is the Grand Voyager, which means it is enormous. You've got plenty of room in here for 7 people and all of their luggage. There's a reasonable boot space at the back. On the downside, well, the rear 3 seats are a bench arrangement and it is a bugger to get in and out. Mind you, these things do have a reputation for being able to do pretty big miles and not show any signs of trouble, so it should be very reliable. As well as loads and loads of kit, including electrically heated and adjustable seats, you get a 3.3 litre V6 petrol engine, which means it will be quick and very expensive to run. This model of the Voyager has now been replaced by the newer version, and whilst that newer version is undoubtedly better looking and certainly safer in the event of a head-on collision, that does mean there will be some bargains around for this, the outgoing model. So if you do decide to go for the Voyager, remember, bargain hard.
If you fancy a Chrysler Voyager, you get a choice of engines. Petrol, there's a 2 litre and a 3.3 litre. If you want a turbo diesel, that's 2.5 litre. The insurance groups vary according to the engine and trim level between 12 and 14. None of them that cheap.
So there we are, that is the Chrysler Grand Voyager, one big, comfy car.
It certainly is. It's like driving a double bed. It was as comfortable as anything. It handles really very, very well, and the turning circle's superb.
It's
for a car
smooth and
that size.
refined as well, isn't it?
Very refined.
10 grand for this?
Very reasonable.
Listen, Clyde, you get to drive that Mercedes-Benz estate in part 2 of the programme, and also coming up in part 2, Richard Hammond will have the alternative selection for Clyde, and there'll be more insider tips on the trading post. That's all very soon. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Used Car Heaven. On this week's programme, Clyde Baker is looking for a new car, either another MPV or maybe a big estate. He's already driven the Renault Espace and the Chrysler Voyager, and soon he'll get to drive this Mercedes-Benz estate. But before that, here's Richard Hammond with an alternative idea for Clyde.
The point of having an alternative car on the programme every week is just to give you something to think about. So your car, like most of our cars, is most of the time going to be doing fairly humdrum stuff, just doing its job. But that doesn't mean it can't be fun as well. So you wanted size, check. You wanted room for 5 people, yep, check. And you wanted room for their luggage. Well, if we open the split tailgate, traditionally a feature of every Range Rover since the very first one, there it is, the boot space. If it don't fit in there, you need a lorry. You also get a handy picnic table, so useful at Ascot. And then you wanted, let's see now, cruise control, check. Automatic gearbox, check. And then we've got just about every other conceivable gizmo we could have. Electrically adjustable seats, mirrors, windows, everything we could need to convey people in luxury and splendour. And that is what the Range Rover is all about. There's bags of space, yes, but it's not just about that kind of practicality. I mean, the driving position, talk about commanding. I sit not just high up like in the MPVs, but in splendour. This is a throne. I'm not in a car. I can see every corner of it. Visibility is incredible, and you know what's best? Everybody can see me too. Out of my way, because I am in charge. If you decide that this regal conveyance is the thing for you, let's talk Turkey. This particular car is a 4.6 litre V8 engined HSE model. It's got just under 60,000 miles on the clock. It is an R plate and it could be yours for 16,999 quid. Now, where else are you going to get this kind of splendour and status for that kind of money? It's not a car, it's an unstoppable force.
Thanks very much, Richard. Now, you've already driven those two big MPVs, Clyde, which you liked, didn't you?
Indeed I did. They were comfortable, refined, everything I was looking for.
Tasty
really.
cars. But what about this? This is even tastier. I mean, that three-pointed badge on the front, it's everything about engineering and quality, isn't it?
And class and style.
Yeah. Does it do it for you, this car, just looking at it?
Oh yes, it's got everything I need in a vehicle. It'd be interesting to see how it drives.
Well, there we are. There's the keys. Jump in. Well, Clyde, the third of our cars is the very nice, very smart Mercedes-Benz. It's an E230. What do you reckon?
It handles very well indeed. Going around the corners, it's actually fun.
Yeah.
I am disappointed that with the road noise, it's noisier even than the Renault.
Yeah.
And it's really not a patch on the Voyager where it comes to actual, you can hear every little bit of grit and gravel underneath the tyres.
So, does a Mercedes-Benz appeal to you as a sort of car and a status symbol, really, if you like?
Yes, I mean, I must admit that it's a status symbol to drive around.
It carries more weight than a Renault or a Chrysler, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's right. People look at you. I've noticed that people have been looking at the cars and been driving along. Yeah. It's a question of what you want. The height, you haven't got the height driving position, but then you've got the fun driving experience.
He pays your money and takes your choice. Yeah. Well, here's Richard Hammond with a lowdown on the Mercedes-Benz E-Class estate.
Clyde, you specified that the cars had to be able to carry 5 people and accommodate all of their luggage. It had to have cruise control and an automatic gearbox. And I know we've been looking mostly at MPVs, but we thought we'd chuck in an estate car, even if only just to compare with the MPVs. So we picked a real big one, the Mercedes E-Class. Now, some people reckon it's a bit slabby and ugly looking. I reckon it looks gorgeous, and it's got the presence that really only a big Merc can have. You do lose the commanding driving position of the higher up MPVs, but come on, sitting here staring down that long bonnet through the 3-pointed star and sitting behind this massive steering wheel, I feel pretty much in command. You do get everything you need in here, all the stuff you specified. You got cruise control, automatic gearbox and loads of other toys too. And there's loads of space to accommodate you at the front and your passenger and the passengers in the back seat too. This is another car due for replacement next year, so beware again of paying top dollar because the prices should start to slip pretty soon. Now, we have said as some of the MPVs suffer from a lack of luggage space, that is not a problem in an E-Class estate. There is loads. But if you do decide you want to accommodate more than the 5 people, well, keep your eye open for a one like this that's fitted with the optional family pack, because then there's a little surprise in the boot. You can accommodate another couple of passengers as long as they're kids. And to keep them happy, they even get their own little cup holders in the back.
There is an enormous range of engines for the E-Class estate. As a result, there's a huge variety in the insurance, from 13 right up to very expensive 80. This model was introduced in '95. It is still current, but it will be replaced by the end of this year.
What a nice car, the Mercedes-Benz E230 estate. Isn't that smart?
It certainly is. It was great fun to drive for a car of its size.
It's got a surprisingly sporty feel to it, hasn't it?
Absolutely. It was fun to drive.
And I think the great thing about buying this car is that you remember it was 36 grand new, and now it's £13,000.
Yes, extremely good value for money, and it's got the fuel consumption on its side.
Is it big enough, this car, do you think?
Oh, certainly it's big enough, indeed.
Listen, Clyde, don't give us your final verdict just yet on which car you would choose. We're going to have to wait a little bit longer. Before that, here's Brad at the Trading Post.
Today I'm going to talk about the Audi A3, great little German-built hatchback with very strong residual values. Introduced in 1996, 3 engine sizes, 1.6, 1.8, 1.9 turbo diesel. Retail price in 1996 was £16,000 for a 1.6. Today you could pick one up with average mileage for £7,000. This model we're looking at today is the S3 Quattro. This was introduced in 1999. 225 brake horsepower, very quick. All the advantages of the Audi TT with the extra advantage that it's actually a hatchback, this vehicle. If you are going to plump for one of these cars, you will find the Audi dealer network very, very helpful. If you can, always get one in a metallic colour. Blues, blacks and silvers are always the best sellers. Try to steer away from reds and greens if possible. When you come to sell the car, always give the dealers a chance to buy the vehicle. They will give good money. They are a very, very popular car. And with a bit of negotiation, you can knuckle them down to a good price. Next week, I'll be here again talking about another used car deal.
Thanks very much, Brad. There'll be more insider tips on the Trading Post at the same time next week here on Used Car Heaven. But back to this week's programme, and it's decision time. Well, we gave you 3 cracking cars to choose from, didn't we, Clyde?
Certainly did.
I mean, 3 big MPVs and an estate as well.
Yep.
What do you reckon to this, the Chrysler Voyager? You're going to put this in, what, 3rd place?
I'm afraid so. If
Yeah.
my heart was ruling my head, I'd drive home in it. It's a lovely vehicle, but unfortunately the fuel consumption, I can't go with that sort of fuel consumption driving around town most of the day.
Fully loaded. It's got everything you want on it.
Certainly
apart from
has.
that petrol engine. Which means that in 2nd place is this, the Mercedes-Benz estate. I'm surprised, Clyde, to be honest. I thought you were edging towards this as your winner.
It's fun to drive, and it's got the fuel economy, but it's actually more difficult to park than the other 2. It was very close, 1st and 2nd were very close. I had to make a decision.
Which means that in 1st place, Clyde, you've put this, the Renault Espace.
Yes, absolutely.
You really like this car?
It's the compromise I'm looking for. It's got all the specifications, it's got the fuel consumption, and it's got the space.
I think that's what it comes down to when you're buying a used car. It is a bit of a compromise, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's the best compromise
Low
going.
mileage, 10 grand for that, 2
And
plates.
it's amusing and fun to drive as well.
Different, isn't it?
Very different, rather
Clyde,
Gallic.
thank you very much for your time
Thank you
today.
very much.
That's it for this week's Used Car Heaven. We'll be back with more at the same time next week.